Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Compelling Conversations podcast. Today, I'm joined with Keri. Keri, thanks so much for being here.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, I wanted to begin by saying that it's really cool to have you on here because it's so random. Like, I remember when
Hmm.
I first met you, it was at a banquet, and you were just
Yeah.
taking pictures, and we
Hmm.
talked for like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. And yeah, it's like, wow, now you're on this podcast. Like, how
Yeah.
random.
One thing I've learned this year is that life is crazy. Up and downs are definitely a real thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I think it's also very cool because it's like you kind of go through your life and different things happen, but you can't predict like where they lead. Just like, oh yeah, this
Oh,
is
that is very true. This year has been very, very unpredictable for me. It's
hmm.
had low lows and high highs.
Ah. What was one of the ways that it was like most unpredictable to you, or surprised you the most?
Well, honestly, well, just like getting personal, like I was for a while, I was in a relationship where I thought it was going very seriously, and then abruptly it ended. Um, and all of a sudden I it was different. And then unexpectedly I didn't think that I was gonna be ready for like another one for a while, and then unexpectedly someone entered my life, and here I am happy again in another one, which is kind of crazy. How things happen like that. So stuff like that.
Yeah,
It was very, very unexpected. So I don't know, that's like a little personal element, I guess, as to why it's like at least like why this year has been unexpected. And not to mention that, but like with my new job, with social media, that was also unexpected. I thought that the semester was just going to be me because I used to work at the UH Rec as well. And I thought it was just going to be normal, like that, focusing on school very much and very like kind of boring and like because normally like my college years have been very, I don't know how to describe it, but very kind of like predictable versus like this year has been very unpredictable. I've met lots of new people through my job, through working games, through just my work in general, and it's been so much fun. And it's my senior year of high school, college, and that was like one of my goals was to have a very much like collegey last like semester or year. Because this isn't my last semester, but still like last year in college. And I definitely like how my job has been able to help me do that. And my also just my job in social media and working with UH has definitely helped that a lot. And that was also unexpected too, whenever I was in the summer at least and stuff like that. I was never expecting like the semester that I've had to have.
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned all those things, and I loved how you shared all the positive aspects of unpredictability. When you face those negative elements of unpredictability, like, oh man, things just kind of happen surprisingly, but
Mhm.
you didn't expect that, or kind of took a turn that you weren't hoping for. How do you face up to that?
Oh, like the lows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the unexpected lows.
I mean, one thing I've learned in life is that life changes constantly. And rather to like push away the change, I learned to welcome it. Rather, if it is like heartbreak or depression or anything like that, if it is really sad, I've been through a decent amount of stuff in my life, I would say. And I learned early on that that stuff is just going to happen. And I don't shun it or ever. I always just let myself like feel it and stuff like that. I never bottle it up. Um, but yeah, I've learned to just welcome it, the highs and the very lows, like all of it. And it's just a part of life.
Yeah,
And I feel like it's all about like the journey.
that feeling it part, that was really something. But I like you said the journey right there. There was this one speech that Brad Pitt gave one time, and he was saying he read somewhere, someone asked, "What's more important, the journey or the destination?" And he said, it's the people around you. And I was like, yeah, that hits hard. It's not the journey or the destination that's more important. It's the people around you. And I really feel that, like a sense of community or like the people you
Mm-hmm.
interact with on a day-to-day basis. That makes it all worthwhile in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've met a lot of people through the things that you do. Do you feel that? It's the
Um,
people that have an effect.
Yeah, I mean, but for me, the people are like part of the journey. So I would classify those like as like the same thing in my opinion.
Mm.
And like I feel like it's all of it and about like the journey of the people, the places, the culture, everything I feel like in life is all about like is part of like the journey because there's not really like I feel like it's not fair to take a single aspect and not pair it like with like what you learn throughout like I guess the journey or whatever. So I mean, I would agree with that, but that's also I feel like I look at it slightly differently than how that question is posed.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective for sure. Do you think people are ever forgettable? It's something I've been thinking about lately. Like, are they really forgettable?
I think it depends on how much they had an impact in your life. Like I remember like small things or like even like the big people in your life, like your mom, your dad, your immediate family, your best friends. Those people are unforgettable. But versus like maybe an occasional like greeting or an acquaintance like you've had like over 10 plus years ago, that might be forgettable. And but that's the thing, sometimes even the smallest interactions like checking out like a grocery store could be unforgettable, like maybe it made your day that day and then like you've never forgotten it since
Yeah,
and
good
stuff like
point.
that. So I think like it can range from both. Like people, obviously, people that are very central to your life and core to you will not ever be forgettable. But I think it only is like forgettable if it's like a smaller interaction, and sometimes those people are also unforgettable as well.
Yeah. One of the angles that I was looking at it from was I often think everyone that I meet, they tend to leave a part of themselves with me, and I tend
Mm-hmm.
to leave a part of me with them. And sometimes those connections are really close for a period of time, but as time moves on, your feelings can change about certain people,
That's very
for
true.
better or worse. And it's like, maybe I had a friend 3 years ago, and now I just don't know him or talk to him. But it's like, because
Yeah.
so much time has passed, it's like I don't really give that person that much thought, even though whatever they did still has an effect on me. So it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting like that.
Yeah. Sometimes things fade. Sometimes something happens, like something bad happens between two people. Because I was like, I mean, I have childhood best friends that I never talk to anymore, but they for sure still left an impact like on me for like the rest of my life because at one point they were like one of my core central people like to me. And will I ever forget them? No, I thank them for that. And that's they were who I needed at that time in my life.
Yes, the seasons, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're a pretty great photographer, and I think about photographs a lot. I think
Mm-hmm.
about photos and just like the different effects they can have on people because they capture a moment in time, kind of like this podcast captures a
Mm-hmm.
moment in time. And there's this documentary called Val. It's about the life of Val Kilmer, and there's this scene in it where he talks about how the Native Americans believed that when you take a picture, it captures the soul of the person. And then there's a movie called Minamata with Johnny Depp in it. And he says the same line, but he goes, the part that gets left out is it also captures the soul of the person who took the picture. Now, I know it's a little out there, but what do you think of that, being as you are a photographer?
No, I kind of like that. I was once watching this TV series. What is it? Emily in Paris, and
Oh, yeah.
they one of the side characters, like one of the boyfriends of the characters, was a photographer as well, and they took pictures for like a marketing event for the thing, and because it's about a marketing firm in France and stuff like that. And so they were looking through the pictures, and someone noted that the photographer Um, you could tell, like they could tell that they really liked the one of the people in charge, like one of the women in charge, because he kept photographing her. And I was just like, that just kind of reminded me of that because I was like, it just made me think of that because it showed like, oh, the photographer likes that person, so they were capturing a lot of that person at the event, and stuff like that. It showed like their likes and interests, and like I can attest to that like a little bit. Like one of the first things like I did for photography was um, equine photography, or like horse photography. That's where like I started, because I would see like my friends getting into it, and I would see it all over online. Because at that time, like horses were very central in my life, and I was a horse girl, still am a horse girl. But yeah, I started with equine photography and only grew from there. But yeah, you could tell that I loved horses and stuff like that. Eventually, I got better at it and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I definitely think like it captures a moment in time, and like if the photographer is passionate for what they do, and depending on what it is, if it's something that if it's a project that they're passionate about, I would definitely say that it definitely captures a little bit of the photographer as well.
Yeah. Going back to Emily in Paris, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember I saw that show like years ago
Mm-hmm.
and it had an effect on me, but it's like I don't consciously think about that. But when you mention it's like, oh yeah, I remember that show, the things that happened in there.
Mm-hmm.
There was something going on. You went to Paris over the summer in like different parts of France.
Yes, I
If
did.
you when you reflect on that trip, what was like the biggest thing that you carried with you from that? Did it transform you in some way?
Yeah, I would say the ways that transformed me was probably the biggest thing was food. Is anyone who knew me like before going to France, I was known as a little bit of a picky eater. Not like a little bit, but primarily a picky eater for the most part. But going to France, I was like, I'm going to be served things that are not going to kill me. I may not like them, but I need to learn to suck it up and eat it anyways because it's being served to me. Because like you'd stay with a host family and stuff like that. And you'd be served, and you get served lunch at the school or the college there, the university, I should say. Because I studied abroad. And so being there, I learned to broaden my horizons food wise, but not just that, but also like exploring and traveling. I feel like that's another thing that changed me. And it made me realize that whenever like I'm older and can afford it, I want to go out of the country at least like once a year, wherever I can and stuff like that. And because I loved traveling over there and I loved getting to see like all of the things the world has to offer, because I was like, it's so much different than in the US. Like everything is different. Like it's prettier, it's the architecture's amazing, and it was just overall a life-changing experience for sure. But I feel like those
Yeah.
are my biggest takeaways, is that I realized like when I'm older, I really want to travel more and stuff like that. And like I said, go out of the country at least once a year. It's a little ambitious, but hopefully, if I'm in a place to afford it, that's what I would like to do. Um, and just also culturally, like open your mind to like new people and stuff like that. Um, and take in like scenery like when you do it. Definitely take like lots of photos and stuff like that. I feel like that's important so that way you can go back and like look at it. Normally, I used to be one who was very like, no, I don't want to be on my phone. I want to take it in and like experience it like just in my brain and like memorize it like through. But that was only so much. And I'm like, if you don't like take pictures of it, like you want a balance for sure. You want a balance between taking photos, but also still like living in the moment and like taking it in. So
You
traveling
are, oh,
would
yeah,
be
go
one
ahead.
thing. And then learning to open up food wise, probably for me at least, because I was a little bit of a picky eater. Like I as bad as like this sounds, because like I'm an adult, I did not like vegetables and stuff. um, which was bad. And like I mean I did like some, but it was very limited. Versus like in France, I learned that I like zucchini and I like ratatouille and like all these stuff. Like it. depends on the way that it's cooked. And like one of the big things I learned a recipe for ratatouille, the home recipe that my host family gave me. It was pretty. That one was pretty good, and I've recreated it here a couple times, and it's pretty
Wow.
good.
Yeah, Ratatouille, probably one of my all-time favorite films. Man.
Very, yeah. Also a film too.
Yeah. There's a bunch of interesting things you said. Um, that part about like you used to be a person that just wanted to be in the moment and like take things in, don't really take pictures. I remember I was kind of like that too, but then I regretted it a little because I remember one of my cousins, she got married, and it was like the coolest wedding I've ever been to. But I was so stoic and like I didn't take any pictures myself. If people were taking pictures, okay, cool. And it allowed me to be in the moment, but I think like, damn, we had such cool memories. If only I had pictures, of
Yeah,
that time.
exactly. Like
And
you
yeah,
realize, like living in the moment is great, but looking back, like if you're looking back on it 5 years from then, you're not going to memorize it as well as like
yeah,
you are if
no,
you take some pictures, you know?
yes. It just kind of becomes a cobweb in your head. It's like you can
Mm-hmm.
faintly remember it. Another really interesting thing he said was like opening yourself up to like the culture of different places. And again,
Mm-hmm.
going back to Emily in Paris, one of the characters, he had a quote that I always remembered, and it was, "You Americans, you live to work. Us French,
Mm-hmm.
we work to live." And I was like,
The
yeah,
work
that's
culture there is definitely a lot different. Like even the school culture there is a lot different. Like we would get like around 2 hours or an hour and a half for lunch, maybe a lot longer than you get in the U.S. Like in the U.S., you get lucky if you get an hour because like you might get 30 minutes, depending on the job and stuff like that. But I feel like it's general to say in the U.S. if you get a 1 hour lunch break, that's pretty lucky. Um, versus over there, it's like an hour and a half to like 2 hours half the time. And it's like insane because we would eat and then we would have time to like walk around the school or like walk around like the small town that we were in. I was studying at Université de Catholique de l'Ouest, I think is what it was called. And it was in Angers in France. And we got to walk around like the small town and stuff like that, which was really gorgeous and pretty. And it was fun. It was nice getting to like just walk around after you eat before like going back to class and stuff like that. So like that's one thing I wish that the US had was instead of being how work central the US is like we don't live to work versus like I wish like we worked to live instead of like over there. So I completely agree
yeah,
with that quote because like
yeah,
the work culture is insanely different. Like even in France, you could have wine during lunch, like one or two glasses, and that's perfectly normal. Versus like in the US, drinking on the job, hello. Definitely like even one beer, like one glass of wine in the US during lunch, that would get you probably some side eyes. Um, and that's like, but not really culturally accepted here in the US. At least I feel like it is. It's not. Versus like in France, like a glass of wine is like completely normal to have like at lunch and stuff.
you're an Austinite. Do you
Mhm.
notice a cultural difference between Austin and Houston?
Yes, I think one of the bigger ones is driving. Um,
Driving.
People in Austin, because I am from like the suburbs of Austin and stuff like that. I was born in Austin, so I can still feel like I was saying from Austin. But I'm from like the suburbs of Austin, kind of like Katy to Houston or like Pearland to Houston or something like that. I'm from a place called Pflugerville. A lot of people don't know where that is, so I always just say Austin, or slash Austin area. But yeah, no, being an Austinite and moving to Houston, the driving was probably like one of the bigger things. I feel like people in Austin are a lot nicer when it comes to driving. There's a little bit
Oh,
less traffic,
interesting.
but that's also just there's a population difference, a huge population difference. But I feel like people are a lot nicer driving wise. Because like I always like say thank you and like stick my hand up around the thing, or like I like letting people in like the lanes versus in Houston, you have to battle to get in your lane on the highway. Um, and
Have you
always
ever
be.
clapped hands with McConaughey?
Huh?
Have you ever clapped hands with McConaughey, Matthew
No, I
McConaughey?
haven't. The closest that I've been to Matthew McConaughey was I was attending an Austin FC game and he happened to be at the same game. That's the
Mm,
closest I've ever been to Matthew McConaughey.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I always ask Austinites that, like, have you ever clapped hands with McConaughey? Yeah, no, Austin is cool. Texas in general is just really cool. I
Mm-hmm.
used to be very I didn't like Texas. I didn't like Houston, but when I like started getting acquainted with like the different parts of Houston, when I got acquainted with Austin and San Antonio and
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, I felt like wow, like I really know this place. And I felt like this place knows me. And then there was like a love that was created there. Like, wow, I really have a love for Texas. Um, so yeah, it's cool being a Texan, you know. But another
Mm-hmm.
one question I wanted to ask you was about horses, because I know you're really into horses.
Yeah.
What is the greatest lesson you've learned from horse riding? You know
Oh
how they say
God.
like, oh, fishing teaches you patience or something? Would you have something like that for horse riding?
Gotta think about that one. For horses in general, um, say one of the biggest things that I've learned is learning how to love. Um, because because I was trying to think of something like more on the unique side. Learning how to have like a share a bond. Because when you own a horse and you work with that horse, it's a partnership. Um, because a lot of people think that like horseback riding isn't really a sport, or like the horse does all the work, when that's not true whatsoever. It's like a 50-50 partnership, like a marriage, not really a marriage, but it's a partnership and you work with your horse like to do that. Like for example, my horse, I've been riding her, or like before college, really, I was riding her for a while, and like you really get to know like the horse, and like they get to know you. Like my horse can tell if I'm not confident, if I'm sad, or like because horses are a lot, some of them are a lot smarter than you would think. I still know a couple horses that definitely live off one brain cell, but because I mean, like they're like humans. Some are smarter, some are not so smart. But horses are really, really smart when it comes to like emotional intelligence, a lot more than someone would think that they are. They're very inept animals, and it's like you're bonded with one. I feel like they can read you, like, or at least I feel like my horse can read me, which is nice. And like I fully love that horse very much, and she has my whole heart. And I've also known her since I was a kid too. Um, I used to ride her a bunch when I was little, then shifted to a different horse, and that horse is also a part of like my heart. But then I shifted back to like my horse that I am riding slash currently have now. But that's like one of the biggest things is like learning to just have that love in your life and stuff like that, and learning how to love an animal like so much that I would say like is even different from like a dog or cat, because I also have a cat, but like when you have a horse, it's a lot different of a bond, and because of like how much you like physically work together, and stuff like that. And I know her very well, and I feel like that she knows me like really well. Um,
What's your
and
horse's name?
Bella, her name is Bella.
Bella.
I actually have her name tattooed on me. So,
Wow.
um, and then another thing is no matter, I feel like this is a little basic, but no matter like how many times like you fall, get back up. And I mean that literally, like physically. Because like
That
that's
is
one
deep.
thing you need to do. I feel like that's basic, but
But it's
it
true.
like yeah, hear me out, because like I jump horses, and so one of the things that I learned like was like after my first fall, like if you fall off a horse, you can't quit. I mean, unless you're injured, that's one, but that's different. If not, if you're perfectly okay, you need to get back on the horse and finish your task. Because if not, that's going to teach the horse bad habits and stuff like that. Um, and so like you need to get back on and like do it. And so like even if you fall multiple times, like you need to eventually do it at some point, because one, you don't want the horse thinking that it's okay for you to fall or anything like that. Or because sometimes a rider falling is the rider's fault, sometimes it's the horse's fault, or sometimes it just happens. But like for example, if it was the horse's fault and the horse is being bad, you need to get back on and show them like a little lesson. I would say another thing. Sorry, now you got me on like a roll.
It's fine.
Um, Another thing is like learning how to be like assertive and being like the boss and kind of like confidence because horses when they act up, it sometimes can be hard to control them. Because when I was little, one of the things that would happen is like my horse would always like run off with me. And that's not a good thing. You don't want your horse running off with you.
What does that
Um,
mean, running off with you? Like just taking off on
yeah,
its own?
I'll explain. So like if I'm working in the arena, the horse will be like, "Oh, I don't want to do this. I'm just gonna gallop off, quite literally, like out of the arena, and then just take you with me." And so I'd be on the horse, and then all of a sudden, doing like what I need to do, like jumping around the arena, and all of a sudden she just will go off, like gallop out of the arena. So quite literally run off and do her own thing and probably want to eat because horses are always wanting to eat. And so, yeah, eventually I learned to not let her do that. Because, like, when you're a kid, you're a little physically enabled, or you're not as strong as, like, an adult or an older teenager would be. So it was a little hard to do that at first, but eventually I got the confidence and like this more skills to like teach and be like, hey, we're not doing that. I'm the boss, you're not the boss. And stuff like that. Like you get confident being around a half ton or ton animal, depending on how big the horse is and stuff
Wow.
like that. And I'm not scared to like fall. I'm not scared to like take a beating because horseback riding will take that right out of you. And
Man.
so I feel like those are some of like the biggest things I've learned is like confidence. Oh, another. Oh yeah, I just thought of another one. But in jumping, horses can sense if you're scared of the jump, and they will not take it unless they are a gentleman or a gentlewoman. They will not take the jump if you're not feeling it because
Wow.
you can. Yeah, you need to in horseback riding and
It's
jumping.
like a partnership. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to be looking like straight ahead. You have to be like giving them encouragement to go over the jump. And because if not, they're not going to take it, or at least my horse won't. Some
Hmm.
might, but those are going to be like the really, really nice horses that are willing to save your butt. Mine is not. Um, she's a little sassy. And will be like, if you're not in it, I'm not going to do it. And like they can like she can tell if I'm afraid or like physically if I'm like looking down because like you need to look straight ahead. That's another thing. You can't look down. If not, the horse might not take it. And you also need to be giving like support. And what I mean by that is like you need to be squeezing them like with your legs and be like, hey, we're going, and like hold and like holding and like you need to be confident about like the jump. And if you're not confident, you need to learn to fake the confidence because if not, you might be going down. And quite literally, like I could possibly fall if they refuse it and I fall off. But so like either fake it till you make it or confidence. Like you gotta go. If you're scared, you just gotta go.
Wow.
And like do it anyways. Don't run away from it. You gotta go. I feel like that's another thing like I learned from it as well.
Just gotta go. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Take the
either
leap of faith.
either just you got to do it, and even though you're scared and nervous, you got to go, you got to do it, or fake it till you make it. Because I
Yeah.
could be really, really scared of a jump, and I'd be like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, and but I can't. I have to do it, and I might be terrified inside, but I have to at least fake it till I make it because if not, my horse is not gonna do it, and that's how you get hurt.
Yeah. Everything you mentioned was profound. And it's like life. Like, those
Yeah.
are really all life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like thick skin, huh? Just gives you thick skin.
Yep,
Getting the
I would say it
relationship with
does.
horses. Wow.
At least an
Would you,
experience.
yeah, yeah. Would you say it's a horse is a man's best friend? Does that, is that, does that stand up as a statement?
I would almost change it to woman because at least like
Okay.
the area that I'm in, it is mostly female dominant. Of course, like you still have like a lot of men. And there's a lot of men in doing Western and stuff like that. But I would say that not to say that it's not man's best friend either, but for me
I meant
personally,
in humans in general,
yeah,
But you know,
yeah,
like
no,
that
I
saying,
know.
like dogs, man's best
Yeah,
friends kind
but
of thing.
you'd actually be surprised of how horseback riding is very female dominant, at least like in not like the professional levels and what I do personally, like in the jumping world. I can't talk on anything Western or that is rodeo stuff because I've never done that. And I can see how that might be more male dominant or more equal. But at least like in the jumping world, is very, very female dominant. Um, and like I'm talking about like hunter jumper or like jumpers. Not eventing maybe like a little bit. Those are different disciplines. For English writing that the style of writing that I do. But yeah, but I would say yes. It's
Yeah,
definitely different from a dog, from a bond that you might be able to have a dog with a cat, but that's not invalidating the stuff that you can't have with a dog or cat. Because I
yeah.
mean,
Good
I
point. Good point.
personally never have experience with owning a dog to where I felt like a special bond because I had one for like a little bit when I was a kid, but he passed away when I was like really young. A dog at least, and we never got another dog. We got a cat. But I would say that each bond is different. Because I don't want to invalidate anyone's feelings
Yeah,
about
of course,
having a
of
dog.
course.
Because I would still say I feel like animals in general are man's best friends. But in my own
Good
experience,
point.
I would say that having a horse
Can be, yeah.
is different for me, at least having a bond with like my cat. Like I still love my cat to death, and she has been there through me, and I can cuddle her. But and like I still have a bond with her, but that bond is very different from what I have with like my horse.
True, true.
Because
Yeah,
yeah, horse is like a partnership. We work together, and like I grew up with her. Not well, I also grew up with my cat too, but like it's a little bit different. Equal amounts of love, but it's a different. It's I feel like it's a more like loving love, like almost to say like I'm in love with like my horse and stuff.
wow.
It's like she's like my like a best friend kind of thing and
That's
companion.
really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That thought came from when I was a kid. It's one of the Lord of the Rings films where Aragorn, he's like in a river, and then like his horse like takes him out. And I always remember my dad saying like, "Yeah, like horses are like the most loyal to humans." It's like, wow, that's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But
I
we're running
like
low on time. I was
I was gonna
curious,
say
Keri.
a
Yeah, go
movie
ahead. Go ahead.
that's similar is War Horse. You ever see that? That
Oh,
can
I've heard
also
of it. Never seen it.
that's another good example of like a bond between a horse and a person. But yeah, we are running low on time. I
Yeah.
sorry, I could
So
talk about horses all day.
no, you're good. You're good. I enjoy like having conversations with people. It's like a place for people to say, whatever they want to
Mhm.
say. So this is cool. I was curious, do you have any closing thoughts, Keri? Anything you felt like you wanted to say but didn't get a chance to? Or something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Um, Not really. I feel like just like my view on life would just be welcome change, whether it's good or bad. I mean, we talked a little bit about that. Fake it till you make it, I guess. Whether you have the confidence or not, just push yourself to do it anyways. To do whatever that you want and stuff like that, I feel like is a good thing for almost anything. Um, I guess those are just like some of the wrapping up thoughts that I had. That's it.
No, that's cool. Yeah, it's been really cool talking to you. I was curious about your last name,
Mm-hmm.
Ogle. Where does it come from? It sounds so interesting.
It's very, very old English.
Mm.
Like Great Britain and stuff like that. Britain, England, whatever. Same thing, I think. It's very, very old British, and it comes from. I can actually trace my because it's my dad's last name primarily. I can trace that lineage up like around 1,000 years ago, and it comes from there's like actually an Ogle castle that used to belong to like my ancestors that were like way down the line, in like England, and so it's very old English. Like use like some of my very again old ancestors were like knights and stuff like that. And yeah, that's like where it comes from. It's just very, very old English. So it's a very, very white last name, but at least it's not a basic white last name.
I
That's how
love the
I
way you
like to
put it.
that's how I like to characterize it in a funny
Yeah.
way. Or in a fun way. It's very,
No, I
very
like
white,
that.
but like it's low key. You wouldn't you it's not basic, it's not like Smith or anything like that.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah. That's a really cool way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this. Thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, of course.
This was cool. This was cool. So, suppose until next time, eh?